Hey everybody, welcome to Talk and Draw. It's me, Patrick, and Travis. We're here to draw with our friend Melissa
Hi.
Pagluica, if I said that right.
Ayuka.
Pagluica. Sorry about that. But Melissa is a great artist, and we're excited to have her here with us. She's been working on an amazing book. Uh, Looks really thick, so I'm impressed. Above the Clouds, right?
Yes, this is my graphic novel. It was supposed to come out this year at Emerald City back in March, but things happen.
Means you'll have copies to sell at the next one.
That's right.
And probably available on your website, right?
Yeah, so you can find it on my website. My screen name is Teacup Bee, probably the easiest way to find me.
Great. Well, we're glad to have you today, and we're going to be discussing work ethic. And looking at the size of that book, I imagine you must have a serious work ethic to get something like that accomplished. So we'll dive into that in a minute. But Travis is going to introduce our art subject for the day.
I was thinking it's more of an artistic addiction.
Maybe so.
That's a good way of framing it.
I like that. Artistic addiction.
Addiction. Yeah, and there is no 12-step program for it either. It just, you're in. Tonight or today or this afternoon or whenever you decide to watch it.
Do you know what time it is?
Actually, it's 3 o'clock. All right, on our time, which means it'll be whatever time you watch this. But today we're going back again to a little bit of merfolk, but we're going to put a little twist on it. We're going to put them in space this time. And for Patrick, if he wants, that he can make it Star Wars-ish. So,
yeah.
Because, the day of today's recording, even though you won't see it on today, it is the 4th. So may the 4th be with you. Late. So, so we'll jump into my screen first, and we'll always start with blank, and then we'll see where it goes. So,
and while Travis is getting set up, back to discussing our art work ethic or work addiction, art addiction. First question for you guys is, what's your routine and how do you build that into your daily schedule?
I would say the first thing is coffee. I don't know what it is, but the process of getting up and then just making coffee is usually my signal that the day started. And then I bring it over to my computer, and I think it's really fun to start off with just drawing.
So do you do like a warm-up drawing?
After it's like a full page of just whatever comes to my imagination.
That's great. So you don't really direct it, you just kind of let it happen.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes. See, for me,
my poison is Mountain Dew. I was just going to say.
It is, and that is your poison. Yeah. No, I actually, if I'm not up by 7 o'clock, I start to feel sick emotionally. It's really weird. I have to get up, and then I usually will I start about 7:30, and I will usually work on whatever my projects are for about till 10 o'clock, and then I switch gears and go straight to client work for the rest of the day. So I dedicate about 3 to 4 hours. No, it's 8. So 8:30, 9:30. About 2.5 hours is dedicated to life of the party and whatever personal projects that I've got going, and then I'll dedicate whatever else needs to be to the rest of my clients.
Then do you do any kind of warm-up, Travis, too, or do you just dive right into whatever project you're on?
I dive right in because I'm crazy that way. So, occasionally I'll do a warm up, but most of the time I'm like my mind's already going. So I just jump right in.
Nice.
And then I try to quit though. And I think this is just as important. I try to pack, put things away by 6 o'clock. So that way I can have family time and stuff like that. I think that's almost as crucial as getting a work schedule.
Yeah, and before we started, we were even talking about having a workspace, and you were talking about being able to set it aside
Yeah, that was nice. As many people know, I like to draw, or I had to draw in the family room for years. And my poor kids, that's all they got to see was me drawing in the family room. And the problem I think with that was every time I would see it, I would walk by and I would see it, and then my mind would sit there and go, "You got to go work, you got to go work," and the chaos was always there. Then when my last son left to go on his mission, um, all of a sudden his room became available, and it has been the nicest thing being able to close the room and walk away, and I don't feel that pressure anymore like I used to. So, and I know Melissa worked in a unique situation too. You were saying that you were working in your bedroom.
Yeah, well, San Francisco, Shem and I, had a roommate. It was just a 2 bedroom, 2 bath. And so space was very limited. And my bedroom was also my office, which really impacted. There were times where I just had to walk away, just completely leave the apartment. uh, I guess clear the head. And yeah, environment really makes a huge difference with working. And
Well, and do you have an iPad Pro yet?
nope, I just use my Wacom tablet.
Okay, so eventually, I got talked into getting an iPad Pro, and then all of a sudden I was no longer chained to a desk. And that was amazing because I could go draw in the living room, or I could go draw for 10 hours on a flight, or travel. I could work without it being a restricted, uh, without being limited. As much as I love the Wacom, they still need to figure out how to make the companion weigh less than like 15 pounds.
Right. It's definitely bulky. But for myself, I guess for my workspace, like you guys, I have had to adapt over the years to different things. Luckily, right now, I did have a son move out, so I have an extra room that I'm using as my studio.
What
But
happens when they get married?
yeah, but I do teach also, so I'm on the road a lot. I have to work in my office at school sometimes, or having the iPad definitely makes it easy to work wherever I'm at. In terms of a routine for me, the best I can do is just try to dedicate the same amount of time every day to it. But it's not always the same time of day. So that's a little bit of a challenge for me because I have to deal with kind of motivation a little bit too. But I wish I could just have the exact same time every day, but I have to adapt. And
Yeah,
so,
go ahead. Sorry
well, I was
about
going to
that.
say, and sometimes the only way to do it is to set a timer for myself and say, hey, you got to draw for the next 30 minutes. Otherwise, I
Which
won't do it.
which turns into a couple of hours.
Usually, because I like it so much, right? So that's that's what I would say on that.
Well, and having that routine, I think, is crucial. People don't realize how important some sort of routine is, especially when if you want to do this for a living, you have to kind of make some decisions. How much are you willing to sacrifice and give up to make it actually work? And people don't realize that it is a huge sacrifice. When you look at Bean, which is 4 books, and I am working on a fifth, that's a huge commitment. And then Life of the Party, that's a daily. So I have to dedicate time to make sure there's at least 2 to 3 strips done a day. And I know that Melissa, your book is 88 pages.
Yep.
That was
Yeah.
probably no easy
Yeah, how did you pull that
accomplishment.
off?
It was definitely an evolution of process over time, just because it took 5 years to complete. And it was my first comic project where I was actually trying to teach myself how to make a comic book. And so in the beginning, I was like, if I just get 1 page done, I'm like, success. But as I was calculating how long it was going to take me to, like, towards the end, where I was like around chapter 5, I was calculating how much longer it would take me to finish the whole thing. And I go, if I don't increase my page rate, it's going to take me 2 years to finish. Do I want to spend another 2 years doing this? Or do I want to, get it printed and run a Kickstarter? And so I did the math, and then I increased my page rate per week. And then I was able to get it done within a year, I think, of switching, deciding how much more time I wanted to spend on all of the pages. And
Wow. So how
yeah.
many hours would you spend a day on it?
Well, I was in a position where I was doing conventions full time. So when I wasn't doing conventions, I was able to work on the comic the entire time, which was pretty nice.
That's a big difference too.
Yeah, because it's really weird when you have to switch gears from working a part-time or full-time job to then switching over to doing art, and there's like a whole transitional period, or just getting your headspace with getting everything done. And
I think conventions are also a big play in that too. You run into, people don't realize how much work goes into putting together for a convention.
Yeah.
The amount of travel, the amount of time that's actually lost from being able to work on your own stuff, especially when you're traveling all over the place.
And so recovering too.
Yeah, there is a recovery, which people don't realize. They go, oh, you should be fine, but they don't realize that we've been doing 15, 16 hours a day straight, and then we break down, and then get back on planes or cars or whatever, and then drive another 10, 15 hours to get home. And then we have to jump back into our routine. We can't just stop. And that's, I think, that takes its toll. I remember we had we had a set of shows that lasted, I was on the road for almost 22 days. And that just killed me. I didn't realize how much that took out of my own personal production.
Rockstar life, huh?
I don't know if it was a rock star life. It didn't feel like it, that's for sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think there's something really cool about conventions. I love them. I like the feel of them. I like hanging out with the people and the fans. But they are emotionally and physically taxing. They do take something out of you.
And I don't know how you guys are, but I know I'm an introvert, so I don't get energy from doing lots of talking and being around people.
That's why we did this for you.
No, this is low-key. I love it. But conventions are awesome because it gets me out of the cave, and it's really good to talk with people and talk about art. But then afterwards, it's definitely having to recover from all of that energy of talking to people, and it's just very different.
Yeah, it's our social life. Conventions are our social life. It's like our family.
Well,
you can only have so much.
I definitely relate to that because it's whether it's doing sales or just talking to a lot of people, it definitely drains me, and creating art drains me too. So just building the endurance to be able to handle that and be on the road for 22 days, Travis, that's a lot.
I don't want to do that again, but it looks like with the way that the schedules are changing so rapidly, it might happen again. But, it's kind of, someone reminded me, well, this was the bed that you made. You need to sleep in it. And they're right. I do like doing this.
Yep. It's always nice to have someone to remind you of that.
Yeah.
So, talking about work, outside of just creating the art itself, that's a lot of things that people don't always consider, especially if you're making something like a really awesome book, and then you need people to see it. You want people to buy it. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into that too, right?
Oh yeah, with marketing.
Yeah.
And making sure that you're all the social posting. And
so how do you manage
consistent.
That, Melissa?
It's actually something I'm trying to be better at. I think what helps is always trying to post my morning sketches, because then I feel like I can be consistent with saying like, hey, I exist, here's stuff that I'm working on. Sometimes it's hard when it's stuff I'm not able to share.
Client work,
I'm like, how do I, It's like, I'm doing things, I just can't share it.
Yeah, I just finished 2 covers that I can't share, and I'm like, it's such, I'm so happy with them.
I think that's the toughest because I did a cover for a friend's comic and I'm like, oh, look how it turned out. And I'm like, when can I share it? He goes, not yet. You have to wait. I'm like, that's the painful part.
Yeah. So what made you decide to do a comic? In all seriousness.
I love stories so much. I was a huge book reader. I'd make my dad take me to the bookstore every week, and I got to a point where he said I was only able to get one new book a week. And then I had to learn how to read really fast just sitting in a bookstore.
Sounds like my 11-year-old.
And so I started off as an illustrator, trying to tell a story just within one image. And I would say I was more into manga as a kid just because they had more stories that like Sailor Moon, where I'm like, it's a girl and she's the lead and she's kicking butt and she gets to save the day. So I definitely read manga, but it wasn't until after college that I got into comics. And then I started making that leap of like, oh, I really love stories and I love telling stories within one image. And so it kind of that gradual like progression of wanting to tell a longer story. And I'm like, right, sequential art, that's a thing. I should.
That's very, very cool.
Grab it towards that.
Did you realize how much work you were in for at the time?
No idea.
Do you
I think that's a good thing though.
That's a good thing?
No, I felt like I finally found a home where, I don't know, as an artist, you're just trying to figure out where do I fit in? What can I do with my work? What am I trying to say? And illustrations was great, but I felt like more positive things were happening as I was working on my comic. And I'd say, because I would publish each chapter as I finished them and then bringing them to shows and then having something like a polished project made people see that I could finish things and like, oh, this is what this person's capable of. And I think it opened a lot of doors for me as far as getting freelance work and just being more part of the community. And, yeah.
I remember seeing that. In fact, I can remember when I first met you was at a show. So many years.
That was Emerald City. That was actually the very first show. I brought like a sample of Above the Clouds too.
I still remember that.
That's awesome.
I think well, one, let's switch. So we can switch screens.
Well, before you go, Trav, why don't you just tell us a little bit what you've been doing?
Oh, I've been drawing some sort of space-like Murph thing. And I put a lightsaber in his hand just to make you feel better.
Yeah, I like that.
So, and then I'll work more on the scales in the background and flesh them out in a bit. It's just gives me a good feel of a direction of where I want to go to. But I didn't want it to look like a traditional mermaid. I wanted to add it more kind of fluid and spacey. So I've been working on that. That's kind of why he's got the Ursula tentacles on the lower part.
That's great.
So yeah, that's where I'm headed. You're welcome. I'll share with you anytime. So hold on, we're going to stop sharing. We're going to jump over to Melissa. All right.
All right, take it away, Melissa.
1 second.
Oh, no problem.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there. Right. So you're
right.
Photoshop.
Yeah. So, oh shoot, 1 second. There we go.
Oh, it's all good.
Yeah. I would say before the comic, I was really huge with using Corel Painter for my illustrations, just because I like the brushes more and the line work. And then as I was doing my comic, because I needed to start streamlining it and picking up the pace with how they were released, it just helped to keep everything in Photoshop. And so I got kind of used to just drawing in Photoshop. And what's nice is I like how the brushes have changed.
Yeah, they have gotten better.
You get more of this like more character to the line, where before, which brush was it? I think it was this one. It's just very like too smooth.
Mm-hmm.
That's without the thing. So it's too, yeah.
Not enough
It just
tooth to
has,
it.
yeah, Photoshop used to have a very, you could tell it was a Photoshop brush or a Photoshop line. It was just very, you could just tell.
It was, yeah, it had something, I didn't like it. And I like hard lines too.
Yeah, I definitely relate. I started out with Corel Painter also. I even had it when it was Fractal Painter way back in the day.
Really?
It came in a paint can. Did you ever get that one?
Yes, I remember that.
Wow, I'm feeling old now.
But
were you a fan of Quark too?
oh boy, I spent so many years using Quark. Oh man.
Evil program.
But
my day job. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say my day job. I used to be a desktop publisher, and I remember Quark, where we had certain programs where if the client's project came in Quark, you had to work in that program. And I remember it being such a pain to.
I remember the day InDesign came out and we got it in our shop, and it was like heaven. And we were so excited because we didn't have to work with Quark anymore. And it wasn't InDesign, it was PageMaker. It was PageMaker 1.0. And we were in heaven because it was an Adobe product. So it would link all the Adobe products with ease. You know, and we didn't, I think after that, I saw maybe one Quark file come in after that. Saving things on a side quest, you know.
Oh man, remember the zip discs and the jazz disc and.
Oh yeah. See, now we're aging ourselves. People are going to watch this and go, "What the heck is a zip disk?"
It was a way to save 100 megabytes. Wow.
Yeah, but the file I just did is way more than 100 megabytes. So, Melissa, have you always drawn?
Yep. I was one of those kids where I'd make little sketches on pieces of paper, and I'd go around the apartment complex selling them for like a dime or a nickel.
Really?
You were already set up for convention work.
I had no idea.
Well, and you have a very unique style. I can remember one of the things that drew me to your style, I can remember in Emerald City, was it felt very like I was looking at something from the 1920s or the 1930s.
And kind of a timeless feeling.
Yeah, and it was super clean and crisp and yet whimsical and fantasy-ish. It was so pretty. And I can remember looking through your stuff, and I think what stopped me was your Swan Princess work.
Oh yeah.
Which is just beautifully gorgeous. So how did you develop that style? Why, you know, you gravitate towards it, and it's wonderful. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it.
I'm not sure. I don't think I was trying to go for a style at the time. I think I was so busy trying to learn how to draw things. And then it got to a point where when you're working on a piece, it starts to feel like you're playing. And I think that's kind of more so where my, I guess, style kind of emerges, is when I feel like I'm playing with the line work. I'm not just trying to struggle with putting it down. But yeah.
So you can work and play at the same time? What do they say? If you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life?
Well, you know, to be honest with you, as much as I do love my job, there are days that I hate the job too.
Yeah. Or the line work's just not coming out the way you want. You're just struggling to put one down. You're like, why?
Yeah, I need to go walk away for a moment. Well, you know,
really, we're recording right now, Travis. You don't.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not walking away. You know, this is what's really good too is watching you. You know, you use a lot of pastels too in your work, which I like. You're very soft, and it really, I think, lends credibility to your design and characters. It's not a design that you normally see in a comic book, and it runs really well. That's why I think you would really like your book. When you wrote it, where did you come up with the idea above the clouds?
So before Above the Clouds, I was working on this other story. And it kind of got out of control in the sense that I was making it really epic and big. And I was like writing out scenes, and I had even did some artwork, but it didn't really feel like anything was happening. And I realized at that time I just had to kind of put it to the side. And so when I started Above the Clouds, I think some of the ideas from the first story kind of came in, where I was very influenced by Norse mythology and Irish lore. And it was during Thanksgiving, I wrote down a line, "A boy gives a girl a book." And I'm like, oh, I like that line, very simple. And the next day I'm like, well, I need to give myself a go where I'm not allowed to be precious. And if I get a page done, then it's great. So I took that line, "A boy gives a girl a book," and I started sketching out some characters. I'm like, I like these characters. And then the next day I just kind of drew out 2 pages, and I'm like, I like where this is going. I kind of just went for it. And so the story, I would say over the first year, I kind of came out with an outline and I knew how it was going to end. And then just over time, I just kind of refined the story with fleshing it out more. And yeah.
So it just kind of evolved as you went along.
It did, yeah.
That's
and then
cool.
I was a big, I loved Invisible Ink. I don't know if you ever read that book by Brian McDonald, I believe.
No, I
And
haven't
just,
read it.
yeah, just the way he talked about story. I'm sure it's concepts that we've heard before, but just the way he talked about it, it really resonated with me. And I would say his book was a huge source of inspiration towards really laying the foundation of fleshing out a story.
Cool. So what is the importance of setting goals to get your project moving?
Oh, everything.
Well, you said a really great point, and I agree with you. Having an ending or a direction is super important. It kind of helps reel it in.
Kind of acts like a guiding post
Mm-hmm.
to just make sure that you're going in that direction. And you may not be perfect, you may not reach it 100%, but just knowing that you're going in that direction becomes like a way to measure. And when you see that measuring of like, I started here and this is the direction I'm going, and I think it helps propel you forward because you don't feel aimless. Yeah, at least it helped me a lot.
No, I think it's crucial. I mean, it helps you a lot. You put out 288 pages, and that's no easy feat.
Well, and speaking of that, how do you keep yourself accountable to your goals? How do you check in with yourself?
Oh, well, I did the thing where I made it a webcomic. And so I had to make sure that a new page, at first it was only 1 page a week. So like every Thursday, a page would come out. And so it kind of became a way of keeping myself accountable because I had people start following along and being excited for the updates. So it's like, I can't let them down. And I stated it's going to be out every Thursday. So I think that was a huge way for me to stay on target with getting the story done.
So
yeah,
having
just
a little bit of
releasing it
that
out into the wild.
having a little bit of that external pressure from an audience waiting for you is helpful.
It does help.
Yeah, I think there might be some people out there who are hesitating to start or put their work out there because they're afraid maybe they're not good enough or well developed enough. But actually, getting something done and then getting a reaction is what really propels you to do it again and to keep going instead of always just thinking about it.
Well, I think there's also something to be said about if you never put it out there, no one's ever going to see it. They don't, most people, when they want to put something out, they go for perfection. It's got to be perfect. It has to be exactly what I want it to be. But in reality, especially when doing web comics, just get it out there. Just start putting something out there, 1 page a week. And that allows it to grow and it allows it to build. And honestly, you know, your audience won't show up. It might take 3 years for an audience to grow. It might take more. But if you're willing to go into the long haul, you'll definitely find an audience there. The other thing that I think is crucial that people don't realize is the importance of putting the comics together with conventions, the web comics. It's a whole nother way to get people to know you exist, and be willing to take some of those pages from your web comic and put them into a book. Let people see what you can do.
Yeah, webcomic was a great way to get people invested in your story and to make the leap of checking out your work. Especially online, it's very low commitment where they could just quickly dive in, like, what's this story about? And I'd say that was one of the big ways of getting people excited about the clouds. And yeah.
Yeah, and I find people are more willing to pick up a book. You know, one of the things that Bean ran into that was super hard was after 780 pages, that's an investment to read. And that's a lot of pages online. So having it, you know, creating something that could have closure is super important. This is looking great.
Yeah, talk about your idea. What inspired you here?
Oh, this piece?
Yeah.
Well, when we said Space Mermaids, I was started thinking about aliens, I guess, in space. And I'm like, what if the aliens were mermaids? And so I was trying to get this flowy feel that could survive out there. And
I
I'm
like the
hoping to put
antenna.
some.
I love it. I think this looks great.
I'm a little bit slower.
That's okay.
When I guess it's harder. I'm one of those people that I get really focused when I'm alone in my cave. And so when I'm talking with people, I have this tendency to want to, I guess my focus gets kind of divided. And I'm like, oh, I want to talk and listen to what everyone's saying.
Right brain, left brain. Sometimes it's hard to swap back and forth.
I just turned the brain off.
Would you mind zooming in on her up at the top? Her expression looks really pretty. Yeah, it's great.
This brush is pretty fun. I like you can kind of see the shape of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
I really like the gesture you've got going on. Kind of they're all in different positions, kind of floating. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch to Patrick too now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. We'll see. Let's give this a shot. There we go. I guess I decided to go with Kit Fisto.
Oh, I love it. Especially with the what's that one race in Star Wars? The they look like they have the tentacle.
The
Twi'leks.
Yeah.
That's what
it reminds me. The mermaid version.
Yeah. So maybe this was a little easy one, but Travis said tentacles or something, and I was thinking, oh yeah, there's that tentacle Jedi.
He wasn't that good. He got taken out pretty quick.
I know, but he looks so cool. I was sad about that. But yeah, so just decided to turn him into a merman of some kind. So while I sketch here, here's another question for you guys. In terms of working, I think that a lot of times it's overcoming something. There are challenges we face. Anybody want to volunteer one of their artistic challenges they've had to overcome?
I think one of the challenges is that I've had to overcome was just myself. You know, I'm really like critical of stuff on sometimes of my own stories, and I'll sit there and go, oh no, I got to change that, or you know, I have to go back and rework that to make it right, and not allowing it to evolve. That was a really hard thing for me to finally step back and just let things be as they are and develop on their own. And once I got there, it helped. You know, it makes me realize that I'm not perfect as a creator. Um, and all of a sudden, I felt a joy just trying to focus in on getting things out, getting the story out, or the design, or whatever it might be. So that, I think, myself was the biggest issue that I faced.
I think mine's pretty similar. Getting out of my own way. Sometimes it's self-doubt. Uh, I feel like when I'm in the middle of a project, it's a lot easier because I know what I'm supposed to be doing and there's a pattern that develops. But when a project ends, what I'm like, where I am currently, where I'm starting a new story, it's finding that new flow again. But in the meantime, I'm like, that inner dialogue of like, I suck, nothing's coming out right, you know, nothing. I don't know.
No, you're right.
Negative self defeatist talk, and then I have to like talk myself back out. I'm like, no, things are gonna be okay. It's okay if things aren't perfect, and yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, Melissa. That a lot of people struggle with that. You know, we end up talking ourselves out of just some great ideas and concepts. And
I
you
think,
know,
yeah, and it seems to be a consistent thing, doesn't it? That artists have that self-doubt. It's just kind of goes hand in hand with creativity, maybe. I don't know. That
I think that's a human quality. We talk ourselves out of things all the time.
I
You
guess it's
know,
just that vulnerability, right? That, hey, I did this, and now I'm
well,
going to be judged.
well, how many of us create excuses of why not to do something as well? I can remember being at shows and talking to people, and they would say, well, I have this great idea for a book, but I'll do it one day. And they'll constantly give excuses of why they can't do their book. But every time I see them, they tell me that they have a great book idea. And yet they're not doing anything with it because they spend more time talking themselves out of it than actually developing some sort of routine or schedule to just do it and see where it goes. And I think, you know, it's easier for us to follow that human quality of laziness or ease. You know, we like to play video games. We like to go to movies. We like to do all these other things that takes us away from that inner dream that we might have of actually producing a book or a comic or something. And we spend a lot of time justifying why we don't do what we do, or why don't we do what we could do. And I think that stops a lot of good creators from producing great stuff. And for getting to that point, you have to decide: do you want to be the guy that just plays the video games, or the girl that just does that, or do you want to be the girl or guy that creates them? And once you come with that reality of I want to be the one that creates them, it's a lot easier to create a mindset to move forward.
Yeah, and put in the work, right?
Well, and there's a lot of work. You know, if you were to look at your pages, Melissa, about approximately, and this is good for people to realize, how long did it take you to do a page? I mean,
Oh man. I have to think back because it really changed from year 1 to year 5. Because I would have a day where I would just sketch in my sketchbook, thumbnails that were like super rough. I call it like mind dumping, where I'm just like put it all out and then I would scan it in. And then it'd be another day of just like doing the final line work, and then another day of coloring. Yeah, it kind of got divided into those 3 different categories. And so, I mean, it would take in the beginning 2 to 3 days to finish a page. And then as I got used to the pattern, I was able to work myself up of getting, you know, a couple pages in a week.
and did it give it even faster?
Yeah, it just kept as like you develop this pattern and technique of learning how to just speed up the process, but that it took time to work up towards that and understand what was involved in each step, and where I was being slow or not understanding the process, going from that to like knowing exactly what was going to be involved and where I needed to focus on. Yeah, and only time helps you with developing that pattern.
Right. So after 5 years, by the time you're getting to the end, you're like, wow, I'm in a good groove.
Yeah.
There's
and
a
I
lot.
miss that groove right now. It's hard.
Well, that's because you just moved, and it's funny how life throws things in our way to throw us off our groove. For me, it's traveling. I'll end up having to travel for a week or two, and it's just like, I'm not working on what I need to work on.
Yeah, and I think it's also, at least what I'm trying to teach myself, I would say this year, is being more forgiving of myself, of not doing things perfect or not being where I was really in my groove and getting things done and out. That it's okay to take a step back and see where you're at and figuring out how to work towards where you want to be and not beat yourself up. Because I think, at least for me, when I beat myself up, I feel like I slow down the process getting back where I want to be.
So what's your next goal after Above the Clouds?
Well, it was kind of funny. As I was moving into my new home, because we have this pandemic happening, and then Shem and I realized that we had to move. That was like right when things started to get bad. We're like, oh no. And then I would say like a week into moving, I got an email from this literary agent that I had reached out to about a year ago for Above the Clouds. And my book wasn't a fit for her then, but she followed me on Twitter and she really enjoyed watching my artwork. And so it was, I would say last month actually, she reached out and asked, are you still looking for representation? So now I'm actually in the midst of developing a new story idea.
Wonderful.
That hopefully will be pitched
That's
by
awesome.
Britt.
And if it doesn't pitch and you'd like doing it, just do it yourself because you've already done it that way.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of one of those people where no matter what, I have a story idea, and once I have it, I just need to get it out there and done. And so, yeah.
What a great thought. A lot of us kind of have that. So what's your bane? What do you hate drawing?
I really like organic things and like circles and
Amen.
curves. I would say guns and mechanical things.
Okay, I'm there with you.
It's something I have to, like cars. That is something I want to, it's actually one of my goals is drawing more cars and more things with sharp angles.
More mechanical stuff?
Yes.
No, that's fine. I would totally understand that. So what are we doing here, Patrick?
I don't know. I just feel like adding some, it's not atmosphere underwater, but what is some water underwater?
Water?
I don't know, like, light refracts through
the clouds?
The layers of, yeah. So I just thought adding a little background shading might do something to it.
Very nice.
It's just kind of roughing that in.
Okay. What color is his lightsaber?
Green.
Okay, just checking.
It's my favorite lightsaber color.
I see. I see. A little obsession there.
Yeah, so he's kind of settling into a little character here.
Very cool.
You want to show what you've got there, Travis?
Yeah, we can jump back to me. Share. Well, I can't share while you're sharing. There we go. All right. So get back into doing some more detail on him.
Well, congratulations on the book deal. That's awesome. You got that coming along.
I mean, it's not a book deal. It's
a pitch
having
opportunity.
An agent. Yeah, sort of someone who's in my corner who's going to be doing the the hard work of pitching my story to publishers.
And I think there's a lesson from your experience, perhaps, that you had to put in a lot of work, 5 years worth of work on your current book, plus your daily activities, your daily drawing, everything that you're doing to actually land someone interested in your work like that. So some people think of it in reverse, where, you know, I'm going to get discovered, then I'll start working. It's kind of the other way around.
Well, and your end game is not over yet too, and that's what people need to realize. Just because you have an agent, it doesn't guarantee anything. What it does is it puts someone in your corner, but you're still going to have to come up with the entire development process and such.
I feel the pressure even more now to I feel like even more work is needed now that I have someone in my corner, because it's not just me working alone and like, oh, no one cares what I'm doing, I'm just going to put it out when I want. I have someone, you know, who's rooting for me, but then also it'll be an interesting experience working with someone else where I get to share with her and put together a pitch and learn from her and her experience of pitching to publishers. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this whole new chapter. See how it goes.
That is so cool.
Would you be willing to kind of share some advice on contacting agents or publishers, or some of your advice on that?
So I there have been different spurts where I had queried agents. And especially when I was finished with Above the Clouds, I took the time to start reaching out people who were interested in comics and graphic novels. It's sort of I would say a shorter list than if you were pitching a book, I guess. And not only those who are interested in graphic novels, but who's interested in like all ages or whimsical fantasy, you know, just the type of worlds I want to create. It's finding an agent who vibes with that same kind of stories and seeing the work that they've represented. I feel like that's a huge thing of not just blindly like sending letters to agents who are more interested in sci-fi when you're then sending them a fantasy thing. But yeah, taking the time to understand what they're looking for. And I would say I sent out like a ton of emails.
So do your research then ahead of time. Make sure you're connecting with them.
Yeah.
Make sure you're submitting the right stuff to them. That's basically it.
Yeah, like read the rules on their website. Oftentimes they'll tell you how they want to be communicated with, what they're looking for when you put your email together, what content to send. Part of me feels like I was kind of, I guess, lucky because I queried, but I didn't hear, I mean, she had responded back that Above the Clouds wasn't a good fit for her. And I've had other similar emails from other agents where like, oh, it's not quite what we're looking for right now. But it wasn't really until a year later that one worked out for me. So
patience is an important part of that too, huh?
Yeah.
That's great. Baby Yoda.
I figured you needed something to make you feel better.
Gotta love Baby Yoda.
You know, he just got to show up in different areas. So there we go. A little bit of magic.
That's right. So one more question about just that pitch process. Do you like to put together art and story, or what's your experience with that?
Well, since I had a finished product, I guess you could say, Above the Clouds, I was mainly pitching, like sending the first chapter, first PDF, and then also relevant information they were asking for, like who I was and my background information. And then I remember it was looking up a lot of advice that literary agents have put out themselves. They'll put out articles answering a lot of questions questions of like, how do you submit to me? And what do literary agents look for? How do you, because it's making someone interested in, I'm trying to think of the right way to say it. It's like when you're giving your elevator pitch about your comic book, when you're at your table at conventions, it's kind of like that, but in email form, where it's having to condense and do the best summary of your story, which can be hard sometimes when you're like, how do I condense, how can I say my entire story in one sentence?
It's a great way to put that. Your convention elevator pitch. I love it. All right, there you go.
Looking good.
All right.
Nicely done.
You're going to jump into Melissa?
Yeah, let's take another look.
Not very
We've been
far.
distracting her. We've been talking.
You know what? But that's okay, because this is good. We're all different styles of artists and creators, and that's important for people to realize. See, so she's got more definement there.
I also like how you kind of work with a frame. Is that something you typically do, or is that just in this particular case?
Sometimes having a frame gives me a reference towards how I want to start putting the composition together, because I sort of see things as shapes. So when I'm sketching, it's kind of more free form. I wonder if I have, let's see. Is that a sketch? Yeah, so this is like more free form where I'll have it out and it's just sort of next to each other, just kind of going.
Look at that. That's amazing.
But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun drawing, just looking at different people and their profiles and understanding wrinkles better, which is really fun to draw.
I also like
characters.
I also like on those the silhouette, the outer shape that's created by the folds of the clothes, or like the little upside down triangle shape you create.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Very clean.
Yeah, framing is helpful for me too in composition. I noticed you were doing it too, Travis, with yours.
Yeah, I framed mine in this time.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, and I like how there's diversity within your characters, especially in body shape and form and feel. You know, it doesn't have a cookie cutter shape to it. And I like that quite a bit.
Oh, thanks. I think that was definitely something over time of wanting to be more diverse with my body shapes and making more interesting characters, more realistic characters. I know when I was younger, starting out, it was just trying to figure out how to lay down a line, and then my characters started looking very similar.
So you think all those studies of different daily sketches really pay off, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because it's just like developing a pattern in your hand. Or at least that's how I kind of see it, is patterns that my hand just starts recognizing.
I hope you make a print of this. This is pretty nice.
Yeah, when I watch Travis draw, I tend to think of it being like muscle memory. He's just on it. And what you're saying about patterns, that kind of makes sense too, that it's subconscious. You just kind of go with it.
Yeah, this is great.
Cool.
I like this a lot, Melissa. I can't wait to see when you get it done, which doesn't have to be in this session.
No.
There's no pressure.
When you finish it, share it with us so we can put it out there. And if you finish it, no pressure.
So what advice would you give someone else that wants to do something like you?
Oh, I'm trying to think, because it's like, what direction would I give the advice in?
Well, if you could sum it up in one big thing.
I think the biggest thing that helped me was not being afraid to fail, of not being perfect. And I think when I let myself be more loose and be okay with not making things perfect, then I was actually able to get things done and move forward. And I think forward momentum is what helped give me confidence. Because above the clouds, like if you look at chapter 1 versus the last chapter 8, you would see there's a difference in line quality and improving over time. And I wouldn't have improved over time if I was so worried about having to go back and constantly fix chapter 1. So yeah, being able to let go and embrace failing.
That's great. That's actually super important. People don't realize how important that is.
Yeah, and I like your sentiment about perfectionism too, because that's come up a couple times in our little conversation today, that we need to avoid perfectionism, because if we are constantly reworking something, we think we're getting better, but I think we're kind of spinning our wheels. We have to be able to move on from something and try something different. We can't always do the same thing or just keep fixating on one thing.
Right. Yeah, this is great, Melissa. I like this a lot, how this is coming out.
Yep. Well, I think we got time for one or two more questions, and then do you guys want to see what I've got here?
Yeah, we'll jump into what you got.
All right. Let's pull it up here. Can't say that it's changed a heck of a lot, but I'm getting ready to do this for you, Travis.
Oh, the green lightsaber?
Yep.
That's the only thing I want to see today.
Here we go.
Excellent.
There it is. It's all done.
Needs to be a little bit more prominent, man.
Actually, I got to say, one of my favorite brushes in what do you call it here? Procreate, is the light brushes.
Really?
Yeah, they're so cool how they mess around with. They're really cool for making glows and things like that. They have these really fun light effects.
Oh, that's awesome. You try the flare at the bottom.
Let's do flare. Let's see what.
It's up at the top. Well, see, I don't play with Procreate enough to get into it. Wow, I like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So.
You got a little fiery green lightsaber there.
Yep.
So what's your question?
The most important question we ask every guest: why do you make art, Melissa?
Because I want to tell stories. I want to be a storyteller. Really, really bad.
Well, guess what? You are.
You're a great one.
Do you want to show your book again?
Oh, yeah. This is my book, Above the Clouds. It was kickstarted last year. It was really exciting. I got over 1,000 backers, and I had a lot of fun shipping it out to all of them. Wonder if I could show.
Yeah, is there a page inside?
So it's kind of a half silent comic where half of it's just told through pictures. I don't know if you can kind of see it.
Oh, I can see it. It's super
kind
subtle.
of switches
like watercolor.
in. Yeah, and it follows this young girl named Eiley who falls in love with this book she's given from this author. And she finds out that the story isn't done. And it's about her trying to get this author who doesn't believe in himself to finish it. And you get to see the world through her eyes. And so in Eiley's world, there's no words, but through when she's reading the story, that's when there's words and dialogue and the book kind of comes alive. And so, yeah, it kind of switches back and forth, the story within a story.
That's great. That's so awesome.
That's great. Yep. I can't wait to get a copy myself.
So where can Patrick get a copy of it?
Yep.
So right now I have, let's see. There's my, can you see it? Is it hard to see?
There it's a little better.
That's my website. Pagluica.com. And I'm on Etsy. My screen name is Teacup Bee, and that's Teacup Bee on Twitter and Instagram, and yeah.
Well, we have really enjoyed having you here with us today. I hope lots of people check it out.
Thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun drawing with you guys.
Yes, that's the best thing about this is taking some time to draw and get to know other people and hear about their process. It's one of my favorite things. I'm so glad Travis and I started doing this.
It's been a fun road.
So we're going to sign off, and then we'll hang around for a bit. Trav, any parting words?
Just keep drawing, keep creating.
Sounds good. Take care, everybody.